Tucker Carlson just destroyed and humiliated Ted Cruz over Iran in the most shocking MAGA infighting we've seen since, well, Cruz had to hide in a supply closet on January 6th. What really happened with the Trump administration's masked ICE officers arresting a man who's running for mayor of New York City because he asked to see a warrant, the Israel-Iran situation spiraling out of control, and Trump's official stance is now maybe I will, maybe I won't, no one knows what I'm going to do regarding the US military attacking Iran, and Adriana Smith just gave birth months after being declared brain dead to a 1-pound, 13-ounce baby, and it has people divided. We're jumping into all that and much more on today's brand new Philip DeFranco show, your daily dive into the news, starting with this. Tucker Carlson absolutely destroyed Ted Cruz in a conversation about Iran and Israel, and you're seeing the internet divided right now. Because as we talked about yesterday, Carlson has adamantly opposed the US getting involved in a potential war between Iran and Israel. In fact, so much so that he's split from Trump on the issue and argued that Trump is complicit in Israeli strikes. And that, as you also had Carlson pointing out, that Trump previously vowed to stop all wars and claiming that getting drawn into another foreign war in the Middle East is not America first. And while Tucker has got a fair share of backlash for his remarks, including from Trump himself, there are also many MAGA conservatives who have come to his defense now, creating a major rift in the party. But throughout all of this, Ted Cruz has become one of Trump's strongest defenders, which also isn't the most surprising because he's long been known as one of the most vocal anti-Iran, pro-Israel lawmakers in DC. Right? And then with all that, last night you had Carlson posting a clip from an interview that he did with Cruz that released today. And immediately, because of how it played out, you had people hooked and interested.
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's,
because
it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and
What percent?
predominantly Shia. Okay, this is cute.
It's not
okay.
even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
Okay,
actually,
I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the
I'm
one
not saying that.
who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump.
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that...
We're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting
This is
Israel.
high stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Okay, so a few things to unpack here. First of all, Carlson is correct that the White House and Trump himself have previously denied having any involvement in Israel strikes on Iran, with Trump even vaguely reiterating that denial again today. So it appears that Cruz is just factually wrong here, or the White House is lying. But then also, I want to hit on the whole debate that they're having around Iran trying to murder Trump. Right, so for some background here, it's been reported in the past that intelligence agencies have warned about Iranian assassination threats against Trump. And in July, a Pakistani man with ties to Iran was arrested and charged with plotting to kill American officials, with legal documents claiming that Trump may have been a target. And then, shortly after the election, federal prosecutors brought charges against an Afghan national who allegedly plotted to assassinate Trump at the direction of Iran. Now with that, Iran's president has denied all those allegations, claiming back in January that his country never tried to kill Trump. But then, just a few days ago, you had Benjamin Netanyahu telling Fox News that Israel had intel that Iran was behind the two close attempts on Trump's life in July and September. Though notably, there you even had conservative outlets like the New York Post noting that American security agencies have never tied the two assassination attempts to Iran. And you have Carlson himself even explicitly saying that Netanyahu is lying about this. Right, and I bring that up because it's been a main element of how Cruz has responded to this now viral clip, with him posting about it repeatedly on X and writing in one. Did a long interview with Tucker, he released a snippet playing a gotcha on the population of Iran. I declined to play that silly game. Watch the full 2-hour interview where Tucker attacks Trump, attacks the AIPAC lobby, and falsely claims Iran is not trying to assassinate Trump. With Cruz then also making another post where he accused Carlson of refusing to acknowledge indisputable truth and sharing this recent clip from Steve Bannon's podcast.
No, Iran did not try to assassinate the president during the last election. And by the way, if Iran did try to assassinate Trump, and we know that, then why are we not at war with Iran?
So again, there are a few different things on here that I want to address. First of all, it is not in fact an indisputable truth that Iran was behind the 2 close call assassination attempts against Trump. Because again, American officials have not officially connected them and Netanyahu hasn't provided any new evidence. And then when you go and look at the full context of the clip that Cruz shared, Carlson is clearly talking about Netanyahu's allegations specifically, with him arguing that if there was indeed credible evidence that Iran was behind 2 serious close assassination attempts, the US would have acted against them. But with all that said, regarding Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson and this clip, it had a lot of people going, oh my God, is Tucker Carlson actually making decent points here? People asking, is it possible to absolutely loathe Tucker Carlson and enjoy the fuck out of watching him destroy Ted Cruz at the same time? Asking for a friend. With then others echoing that, saying that Carlson absolutely demolished Cruz and highlighted Cruz's total lack of knowledge on the issue. I mean, you even had people on the left like Hassan Piker chiming in saying, why is Tucker Carlson capable of conducting an adversarial interview about the dangers of American intervention in Iran with Ted Cruz better than everyone else in legacy media? Shame. Of course, that was playing out as there were also plenty of people who defended Cruz and criticized Carlson. Or some accusing Carlson of disrespecting a sitting senator. You also had others arguing that Carlson was just asking gotcha question, writing things like 99 out of 100 interviewees will not know the exact population of any country, but may know a lot of other things about it. But also the conversation and debate around this interview, it's blown up since Tucker released the full 2-hour interview with Cruz today. And while obviously I'm not going to hit on every single thing in the 2 hours, I do have to hit a few wild bites for you, including this clip that the Tucker Carlson network tweeted with the caption, Senator Ted Cruz tries and fails to use the Bible to justify his support for Israel's bombing of Iran.
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Of those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of, it says the nation of Israel. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my... You pull out the phone and use the Google.
It's in Genesis. But so you're quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it and you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology? I'm confused. What does that even mean?
Tucker.
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Hold on. You're a senator, and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel. And what
does that mean, Israel?
We're told those who bless Israel will be blessed.
But what, hold on, define Israel. This is important. Are you kidding? This is a majority Christian country.
Define Israel? Do you not know what Israel is? That would be the country you've asked like 49 questions.
Is the nation
the
God's referring to in Genesis, is that the same as the country run by Benjamin Netanyahu right now?
Yes.
It is.
Cruz then going on to try to clarify.
That is for me a personal motivation, but I also, what I was about to say, I don't believe my personal faith, not everyone who I represent is a Christian. It's not an argument for me to give that we should do this because of my faith. And so as an elected official, I don't give that as the reason we should support Israel. That is a personal motivation for me, but I don't think it is the reason we should. The reason that I am the leading defender of Israel is because Israel is our strongest ally in the Middle East, an incredibly troubled part of the world, and supporting Israel benefits America.
Right, and then some of the other notable moments that have gone viral include Tucker grilling Cruz over his relationship with AIPAC, the money that he gets, and what they do. For also, at one point, Tucker said that Ted Cruz was saying things like a, quote, sleazy feline. And honestly, like, these two stayed at each other's throats the rest of the interview.
Be a little less snarky.
I know, you're right. That is a problem that I have. I'm sorry.
But again, these are just a few moments from a very long interview that covered a lot of different topics, and I'm going to link to the full thing down below so you can watch it. With that said, whether you've watched the full thing or given what you've seen here, I gotta ask you, what are your thoughts and reactions to this whole situation? But then switching gears from that to other news, we need to talk about how a brain-dead woman who was kept alive for months, not to save her, but to avoid breaking Georgia's abortion law, just gave birth, if you can even call it that. This is the Adriana Smith situation that we talked about a few weeks ago. And the quick breakdown here is that Smith worked as a nurse at Emory University Hospital, and she had to be admitted back in February, which is when doctors discovered blood clots in her brain. With her then shortly afterwards being declared brain dead, and her family wanted to take her off life support considering that she had no hope of recovery. But the staff at Emory University Hospital, they wouldn't allow it because Smith was 8 weeks pregnant, and they were scared that in a roundabout way, they could be accused of causing an abortion by removing her from life support. Because Georgia's law, it bans all abortions if any cardiac activity is detected, which can be as early as 6 weeks. Which, as we've talked about, it's so early that many women may not even realize that they're pregnant. And so this entire situation, it was seen as a prime example of how anti-abortion laws often have tragic and unforeseen consequences. With then all of that bringing us to Friday, where you had Chance being brought into the world via C-section and coming in at just 1 pound 13 ounces, which is extremely small for a baby, even a premature one, and Chance is now in the neonatal intensive care unit. Though fortunately, at least according to his grandmother,
and he's expected to be okay. He's just fighting. We just want prayers for him. Just keep praying for him. He's here now.
Right, and as you can imagine, this is a bittersweet moment for her because after Chance's birth, she spoke to the hospital about removing Smith's life support, all of which then led her to say,
It's kind of hard. It's hard to process me burying my daughter. My daughter should bury me.
Now, with all this, one of the things we don't know is why Emory decided to deliver the baby at this specific moment. The one possible reason is that they wanted to strike a balance between removing Smith from life support as soon as possible in accordance with her family's wishes while also avoiding Georgia's anti-abortion law. And so as soon as her baby was potentially viable, they did the C-section. But also, understandably right now, the hospital isn't saying much. And that is, it's also not like Smith's family has much love for the hospital following them allegedly bungling Smith's diagnosis. Because she had initially gone to the hospital due to headaches and then was sent home before needing to return the next day, with Smith's mother saying,
Oh, she would say that they failed her. She would definitely say that, Mommy, they failed me. If the shoe was on the other foot, I would have been there and I would have made recommendations.
While women, and especially Black women, getting their health concerns ignored is unfortunately nothing new. I mean, we've done deep dives on the topic. That entire conversation, it's being overshadowed by the debate surrounding Georgia's abortion law, with the law itself being fairly vague about what to do in a situation like this, which is what makes Emory so extremely cautious. But also, you have Georgia officials claiming it wasn't even necessary in this case, with State Attorney General Chris Carr saying back in May that removing Smith's support wasn't against the law because, quote, there is nothing in the Life Act that requires medical professionals to keep a woman on life support after brain death. And adding, removing life support is not an action, quote, with the purpose to terminate a pregnancy. And notably, when the laws are vague like that, it's usually up to whether an attorney general actually wants to enforce it and whether the courts agree. So there, I'll say it's possible that we won't have a definitive answer for a very long time unless lawmakers act sooner. And then you've got even more news in just a minute. But first, have you ever looked at your dog mid-zoomies and you think, yeah, that's the only living creature who truly gets me. No judgment, just unconditional hype, tail wagging like it's about to lift off. That's loyalty. That's the love we deserve. And so let's return the favor with food that actually deserves their excitement, right? And I'm talking about Sundays for Dogs, today's sponsor, and the reason my dogs sprint to the food bin like it owes them money. Because unlike the brown mystery pellets that you find in most dog food, Sundays is made with real meat, organs, and superfoods, air-dried into jerky-style pieces that smell like actual food. It was created by a vet who is fed up with the ultra-processed garbage that we've been told is normal dog food, which, spoiler, it's not. Sundays, it skips the synthetic junk. No artificial preservatives, no fillers, no sketchy byproducts. Plus, this is huge, it's shelf-stable, meaning no freezer, no fridge, no prep. You just scoop, serve, and watch your dog transform into a culinary critic. And yes, dogs feel the difference. Better digestion, shinier coats, more energy. Even the grumpy old guys are actually puppies again. Because look, if your dog's part of the family, feed them like it. Go hit up sundaysfordogs.com/Phil or scan that QR code for 50% off your first order. That's half off to spoil your dog with something actually good. But then next up from that, we should talk about the Trump administration having ICE arrest a guy who's running to be mayor of New York. Or the city's comptroller, Brad Lander, who's one of 11 Democratic primary candidates who spent yesterday observing immigration court hearings in Lower Manhattan. But then, as he accompanied a migrant down the hall to leave the courthouse, several plainclothed federal agents wearing masks shoved through the crowd and tried to grab the man. With then Lander locking arms with him and refusing to let go.
I will let go when you show me the judicial warrant. Where is it?
And that went on for more than 40 seconds as you had agents struggling to pry Lander and this immigrant apart, pulling them down the hallway while reporters snapped pictures, but eventually they separated the men.
I would like to see the warrant and then I will let go. I would like to see the warrant and then I will let go.
And then you saw an agent grab Lander's arms, pull them behind his back, and handcuff him, telling him he was obstructing.
I'm not obstructing, I'm standing right here in the hallway. I asked to see the judicial warrant. By asking for a judicial warrant, you don't have the authority to arrest U.S. citizens asking for a judicial warrant.
Right, and so both the immigrant and Brad Lander were arrested, and you had DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin saying that his arrest was for assaulting law enforcement and impeding a federal officer. With her adding, our heroic ICE law enforcement officers face a 413% increase in assaults against them. It is wrong that politicians seeking higher office undermine law enforcement safety to get a viral moment. No one is above the law, and if you lay a hand on a law enforcement officer, you will face consequences. With that said, you had the U.S. Attorney's Office clarifying that it was still investigating his actions and would decide later whether to charge him with a crime. And so in the meantime, you had Lander being released after a few hours in custody, with him then exiting the building, accompanied by his wife and New York Governor Kathy Hochul.
I'm New York City Controller Brad Lander, and I'm happy to report I am just fine. I lost a button. I'm gonna sleep in my bed tonight, safe with my family. At that elevator, I was separated from someone named Edgardo, who I had just met a couple of minutes earlier. Edgardo is in ICE detention, and he's not gonna sleep in his bed tonight. So far as I know, he has no lawyer. He has been stripped of his due process rights by a government and a judge that owe him a credible fear hearing before they deport him.
You had Lander then going on to say that he's come to the courthouse for the past 3 weekends and had walked 4 families out who were afraid of being snatched up by ICE without incident until now. You also had him disputing DHS's claims, saying that he did not assault a federal agent, but that he's ready to defend himself if they press charges. Though also, regarding that, you had Governor Hochul saying,
"To my knowledge, there are no charges. Charges have been dropped."
And she wasn't the only one who was demanding Lander's release, right? I mean, hundreds of protesters gathered outside the courthouse as well.
ICE out of the courts! ICE out of the courts! ICE out of the courts!
Hell, even some of his rivals on the Democratic primary, which is coming up next week, either released statements condemning his arrest or personally went down there to show support.
Was one of them Andrew Cuomo? Imagine that.
For the current second place candidate, Zohran Mamdani, who recently endorsed and was endorsed by Brad Lander, saying,
"He showed us what leadership can look like. And for that, he was arrested. And we have to be clear about this. This is not about an election. This is about ensuring that we protect the city and the country that we love."
But a really big key takeaway here is that Lander is actually the 5th elected Democrat to be arrested or manhandled by federal agents in just the past couple of months. Right, with the first being Milwaukee judge Hannah Dugan, who in April was arrested by the FBI for obstruction by allegedly helping an undocumented immigrant evade ICE agents. Then in May, you had federal agents arresting Ras Baraka, the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, for trespassing as he protested outside a new immigration detention center. Then you had U.S. Representative LaMonica McIver also getting arrested and charged with assaulting and impeding federal agents after she tried to stop them from arresting the mayor. And then, of course, last week you had federal agents forcibly removing U.S. Senator Alex Padilla from a news conference in LA after he approached DHS Secretary Kristi Noem to ask her a question. And actually with that, he gave an impassioned speech about what happened on the Senate floor yesterday, and he broke down in tears.
"I was pushed and pulled, struggled to maintain my balance. I was forced to the ground. First on my knees, and then flat on my chest. And as I was handcuffed and marched down a hallway, repeatedly asking, 'Why am I being detained?' Not once did they tell me why." Now, throughout this country's history, we've had conflict, we've had tumult, but we've never had a tyrant as the commander-in-chief.
Then from that, we need to talk about how the troubling situation between Israel and Iran is still escalating and developing in real time. And, we still can't say for sure what side of the debate about U.S. military involvement in Iran Trump's going to end on. Or with Trump saying today,
"I may do it, I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. Iran's got a lot of trouble, and they want to negotiate." And I said, "Why didn't you negotiate with me before? All this death and destruction."
Now with that, I will say Iran has negotiated. But for one, they reached a deal back in 2015 with the United States and 5 other world powers to accept strict limits on its nuclear program. But then Trump withdrew from that agreement in 2018, ordering a strike that killed a top Iranian commander in 2020 and later threatened to launch a massive attack on the country. So then with that, last year you had him campaigning as the anti-war candidate, with him even supporting a diplomatic solution once back in the Oval Office. And again, Iran, they agreed to negotiate. But notably, it rejected Trump's demand that it stop enriching uranium and put forward a counterproposal instead. Within a 6th round of talks scheduled to take place in Oman last weekend, that is, until Israel attacked. And from there, you've seen Trump's own interest in talking seemingly going down day after day, with him even just straight up saying yesterday he wasn't too much in the mood to negotiate. And then you had him threatening Iran's supreme leader on social media, writing, "We know exactly where he is hiding," and adding, "Our patience is wearing thin," and then in a separate post calling for Iran's unconditional surrender. And today, you had him answering a question about what he meant by that, saying, "2 very simple words. It's very simple, unconditional surrender. That means I've had it, okay? I've had it. I give up. No more. We go and blow up all the nuclear stuff that's all over the place." So then with that, notably when asked whether it was now too late, he said nothing's too late. And so Iran has reportedly asked other countries in the region to pressure Trump to push Israel toward a ceasefire, signaling that it would be flexible in the nuclear talks if a ceasefire is reached. Though they then also made it clear that it will not negotiate while under attack. And with that, you had Iran's supreme leader claiming today that his country would never surrender and adding, "Any form of U.S. military intervention will undoubtedly be met with irreparable harm." With him then saying in another post in Farsi, "The battle begins." But of course, with that, more accurately, the battle it's continuing. Now, some of the latest news being that more than 50 Israeli fighter jets struck targets in Iran overnight, according to the IDF, with them saying that those targets included a centrifuge facility, a missile production facility near Tehran, and a university linked to the Revolutionary Guard Corps. With then one rights group claiming that the death toll has risen to at least 585 people across Iran, including at least 239 civilians. And then as far as Israel, as of recording, there have been no new deaths reported beyond the 24 civilians that were killed in the first few days. And that is, notably, the country is now lifting some restrictions on civilians and allowing more people to return to work and gather in small groups. And that seeming to signal that the Israeli military believes that the threat from Iran, whose attacks have waned over the past 2 days, may be subsiding. Though there, I will say, Iran may also just be conserving resources in case the US gets involved. With now the New York Times reporting that it's getting missiles and other military equipment ready to attack American bases in the region. Because one of the big key things here is that the US has more than 40,000 troops deployed in the Middle East. And then with that, you have officials warning that if the US attacks Iran, it'll not only be the regime retaliating, but also Iranian-backed militias in Yemen, Iraq, and Syria. And that is, you had others noting that Iran could start setting up mines in the Strait of Hormuz, which would be meant to pin American warships in the Persian Gulf. Which, on the note of warships, more are reportedly on their way to the region right now. And then also something else worth noting is that, according to Politico, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has given an unusual level of authority to a single general, U.S. Central Command Chief Eric Kurilla, someone who is reportedly pushing for a strong military response against Iran. With then one former official telling them, if the senior military guys come across as tough and war fighters, Hegseth is easily persuaded to their point of view. And then adding, Kurilla has been very good at getting what he wants. Right, and that, as you then have other officials noting that nearly all of the general's requests for sending ships and jets to the Middle East have been approved, even as other high-ranking officials have urged caution. And while we're gonna have to wait to see what happens with all that, we should also talk about what the justification would be for attacking Iran, or with the two words of the week being nuclear weapons. Because you have Netanyahu claiming that there was an imminent threat of Iran producing nuclear weapons requiring a preemptive strike from Israel. And Trump, he has repeatedly and emphatically declared that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. But the reality is, even if the Iranian government is a brutal, disgusting, repressive regime that says a lot of crazy shit, the actual consensus among US intelligence agencies has long been that Iran hasn't made a decision to move forward on building a bomb. And in fact, back in March, Trump's director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, testified that the intelligence community continued to assess that Iran was not building a nuclear weapon. But then this week, when asked about that, you had Trump replying, "I don't care what she said." And Trump saying, well, he thinks that they're very close to having a nuclear weapon, which I will say is not necessarily wrong. I mean, Iran has actually carried out research that could make it easier to produce a nuclear weapon, and according to Gabbard's testimony, Iran's enriched uranium stockpile is at its highest levels and is unprecedented for a state without nuclear weapons. And so while Iran may not be actively building a nuclear weapon, it may have enough highly enriched uranium to do so relatively quickly, though how quickly is unclear. Some experts have suggested that it would take them only 1 week to get weapons-grade uranium and then another few months to fashion a crude nuclear explosive device. But then you're also seeing reporting that US intelligence assessments have concluded that if Iran began actively developing a nuclear weapon, which, as far as we know, it has not, it would actually need up to 3 years to have one ready to go. And in either case, you also have the Wall Street Journal now reporting that the new intelligence that Israel shared with the US ahead of its attack still did not show that Iran had plans to build a bomb. And so saying because of that, Israel's initial attack may not meet the threshold for the type of preemptive attack actually allowed by international law. And instead, based on the information available, it might be considered an illegal preventive attack, which is taken well in advance of a potential threat. And with that, you have a professor of international law at a university in the UK claiming legal argument Russia made for invading Ukraine is also actually very similar to this Israeli argument. It basically said that at some point in the future, Ukraine and NATO are going to attack us, and that's why we're doing this. But that's not really about self-defense. Now, with that said, some argue that the Iranian nuclear threat is so serious there should be some wiggle room with the idea of self-defense. And that is, others, they say that self-defense doesn't apply here, at least from a legal perspective, and claiming that the conflict didn't start last Friday, but on October 7th, 2023, when Iran-backed Hamas attacked Israel. And then you have people in that camp noting that Iran has directly attacked Israel on 2 occasions since then, though then notably, both were to retaliate against attacks on Iranian officials or on Iranian soil. But, with that said, beyond the legality question, there's also a question about effectiveness. You have some pointing out that if Israel does not succeed, it may actually have given Iran an incentive to develop a nuclear weapon. You have at least one expert claiming that the incentive, it would multiply dramatically if the United States joins the war. And then with that, you have many having the sense that Israel's ultimate goal to eliminate the perceived threat is regime change, especially because you have people like the Israeli defense minister saying symbols of government are bombed and destroyed, from the broadcasting authority and soon other targets, and masses of residents flee. This is how dictatorships collapse. But ultimately, there's just so many layers to this, and where I'll end is actually to take another step back. Because understandably, while so many eyes are now on Iran at the moment, another thing we need to remember is that the death toll in Gaza is still mounting. And in fact, yesterday, it was one of the deadliest days in weeks, with local health officials reporting this morning that Israeli gunfire and strikes had killed at least 140 people over the previous 24 hours, including 59 people trying to to get food. You have deaths like this becoming a near daily occurrence ever since the US and Israeli-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation took over aid distribution. But, with all that, there's a lot going on. We're going to stay on top of it. And in the meantime, of course, I'd love to know your thoughts. And then I've got more news for you in just a second, but first, have you ever left the house and you just instantly regret your shoe choice? Wet socks, sore arches, sweaty regret, right? Longtime viewers, I'm going to be talking about longtime sponsor, Vessi. Right, their shoes, they make what if it rains a non-issue. I've walked through puddles, downpours, airport chaos, and my feet, dry, comfy, and smugly superior. And currently, I'm rocking their newly launched Pacific sneaker, and like all Vessis, they're 100% waterproof thanks to their breathable Dymatex tech. Not water resistant, not kind of water safe, waterproof. And they've got the right mix of athletic and everyday. Like, I could hit a museum, a lunch meeting, or a coffee in these and still look put together. And the comfort, elite. I mean, we're talking lightweight cushioning, breathable knit, and a padded heel lock that actually hugs your foot. Plus, they slip on and off like a dream, which means no fumbling at TSA. Also, Vessi's vegan and PFAS free, so they're better for the planet and your conscience. They're also available in half sizes, which is a bonus for most. That just being one more reason that they've replaced 3 different pairs of shoes in my closet. They hold up. I put miles on my sneakers and they're still going strong. So hey, use that QR code or go to vessi.com/PDS to step confidently into daily life with the waterproof, ultralight Vessi Pacific sneaker. And with a 1-year warranty and worry-free 30-day returns, you're covered for every journey. But then to shift gears from that to a different kind of news as we begin to wind down today's show, let's talk about lupus. Well, Dr. House, of course, famously always said, it's never lupus. It is a thing that affects people, right? It's an autoimmune condition in which the body develops antibodies against its own DNA and other cellular material, meaning that the body is attacking its own healthy tissue. So people can experience joint pain, rashes, severe fatigue, inflammation in organs, and it typically appears between the ages of 15 and 44, and it's overwhelmingly in women. And with that, you have Dr. April Barnato saying that lupus, it often shows up when women are raising families or getting promoted at work, and adding, they wake up and feel like they have the flu or a viral infection a few days a week, every week. That's pretty debilitating. And one of those women is Jennifer Lee. And she's a 36-year-old woman who was diagnosed back in 2016, and every few months, Jennifer would wind up in the emergency room with a severe rash or joint pain and swelling or sores in her mouth, or even after passing out from exhaustion. With Jennifer saying that she'd often have to take medical leave from work, and it would take 2 months for her to feel healthy again. And she's also unfortunately among the 50% of lupus patients to experience inflammation in their kidneys, which is something that often results in the need for dialysis or even a kidney transplant. Now, with all that, currently severe forms of lupus can at best be managed with medications like steroids and immunosuppressants, and the patient has to just deal with this lifelong condition. And at worst, if the disease resists treatment, it can lead to organ failure and death. And Jennifer, she's tried all the conventional treatments, hoping that she could get her symptoms to stabilize and maybe she could have a baby. But the medication she had to take, it meant that pregnancy, it just wasn't an option, and it was too dangerous to be pregnant with uncontrolled lupus. And then by last fall, she had run out of conventional treatment options. And so her physician offers her a chance to participate in a clinical trial that was testing a new therapy borrowed from cancer research called CAR T-cell therapy. Right? And that therapy is kind of a living drug. It modifies patients' immune cells to help them attack misbehaving ones. And notably, it had significant success in treating certain types of cancers, especially blood cancers. But then also, there's a growing body of evidence that suggests that it can be used to treat severe forms of lupus. Right back in 2021, a medical student from Germany was among the first to get this treatment for her lupus, and within days, her symptoms dissipated and they haven't made an appearance since. And since then, dozens of lupus patients around the world have been successfully treated with CAR T-cell therapy. But, I will say everything's not said and done here. With the FDA, they've yet to approve this treatment for lupus in the US. And it's prohibitively expensive, with one-time costs for approved cancer therapies coming with a price tag of $500,000 or more. Not to mention, researchers still have a lot of unanswered questions. Things like how long does it last and are these patients really cured? But as of now, what we do know is that patients that have gotten this treatment are able to live their lives more freely. And that now includes Jennifer, who's able to return back to her job and she can actually get a good night's sleep. They're saying that she's pain-free, energetic, and she's hoping to start trying to conceive later this year. And so hopefully, as we keep our eyes on this, we get more good news from the FDA, the cost can go down. But I also think, it's just good to know that we are still pushing forward to find treatment and cures for diseases that countless people are forced to live with every single day. But then, finally today, I want to end with a congratulations and talk about y'all's comments on yesterday's show. Starting with congratulations to Michael P., SeatGeek's weekly winner, who just snagged $500 in tickets, with my man pumped to catch a Giants take on the Packers November 16th. And for the rest of y'all, that's right, SeatGeek is still giving away $500 in tickets, and you should definitely enter today if you haven't already. You could be the next winner and snag $500 towards seeing your favorite artist, sporting event, or play. The options feel limitless because there's like over 70,000 events to choose from. And all you gotta do, just add code PDS to your SeatGeek app profile for a chance at the weekly $500 prize, no purchase necessary. But with all that said, let's talk about y'all's comments on yesterday's show and some commentary, starting with one of the top comments that wasn't even about a specific story, but Jobbed Out wrote, "Wonder if Phil misses when the Daily News was about YouTubers pursuing each other and spicy secret links of the day. Which one? Okay, you're making it sound like I was linking out to porn. That's not, I don't believe that's what was happening. A million years ago, the show had man show-esque stuff that is in the rear view. But then also too, yeah, a lot of the early show is about like celeb and YouTuber drama. Though it could be argued that it is inherently the same show, it's just that the subject matter and the stakes have changed, right? It's less YouTuber A versus YouTuber B and more politician versus like rights versus the Constitution, or, billionaires versus the working class or countries. Yeah, different characters. The stakes have changed though. To tweak that question, I think what I would say is, I would much rather live in a world where it was hard to come up with what the show is going to be each day. It would be bad for the views, but I think infinitely better for my mind and soul. But then separate from that, regarding the stories that we were covering, we had Kiro SP saying it is genuinely terrifying that the people running our country have so little empathy that when one of their colleagues is murdered, they immediately rush to say the assassin was on the other team, not even pretending to care about the loss of life. No thoughts and prayers, just immediate lies to make themselves look better. Which, yeah, that feels more the situation that it's been in a very long time, where it's really just teams playing one another. There are people out there who go, who even cares about the reality of the situation or the human element? How can I use this? And or how can I deflect if this makes my team look bad? That sort of thinking, it's just a recipe for fucking disaster. Currently, and unfortunately, that is what's on many people's menu. And actually with this, you had Jen sharing, Minnesotan here, I visited my dad, a huge MAGA buff, the day after the shootings. He had the fucking audacity to claim that the killer's attacks weren't politically motivated because he was a churchgoer whose mental was affected by a brain tumor. The sort of thing that caused you to hammer out a hit list, accidentally impersonate a cop, and drive to the houses of multiple elected officials in the middle of the night. Then regarding the Trump phone, you had Cryo saying, the moment I heard Trump Oregon phone service, my immediate thought was, oh, so that's how they're going to build their surveillance network. Which there, I think it's important to be skeptical. We could also easily be argued that it is just it's a lazy cash grab. Again, just looking at the site, it was so fucking messy. There were things that weren't applicable to the other thing that it was supposed to represent. Also, I'll say in those comments, there are a lot of people on the Marjorie Taylor Greene, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, criticizing Trump news. You had Amanda Rose saying, I hate that this timeline has had me saying even a broken clock is right twice a day, more times in the last month than I've said in my 31 years on the planet. Which, yeah, I will say it is very interesting to see, just like, especially over the last 2 months, how stupid, scary, and dangerous a number of things have gotten, that even people that are allied with the person responsible are like, this is fucking crazy. But I will say, with certain different people on certain different topics, I get confused as to why there's confusion or shock that Trump is doing a lot of the things that he actively said he was going to do. And then finally, it was awesome to see so many individual comments that were just loving the story about Peter yesterday. And also, it was interesting to see that a number of you were actually already familiar with him. It was my first introduction. And yeah, he just seems like an absolute bamf. And his situation, it shows like how one person helping another can have just such a massive ripple effect. But that is where today's show is going to end. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And I'll see you right back here tomorrow, because I got a brand new show for you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Love you. Mean it. Bye.